This is the New Overlords Podcast, where we talk about what's fun in all the games that we play, which this week includes Cyberpunk 2077, Starfield, the many worlds of Warcraft, Star Wars: The Old Republic, and then some extra news about Palia, Star Citizen, and a few other things. I'm Jeff, aka Max the Gray, and with me is my co-host, Sema. Hello there, Sema.
Hello, Jeff. How's it going?
It is going great. Thanks for asking. Let's find out what's going on in the news.
Good news, everyone.
So to kick it off, as we mentioned last week, a couple of things that were happening last week and this week around Cyberpunk 2077 have been very exciting. So that is all going on right now. Cyberpunk 2077 on Thursday, prior to this, had their 2.0 update. And what the 2.0 update brought to the table was an update to the base game. And I'll talk about all of this and what I played, because I played it all pretty hard over the weekend. But it updated the base game. And then today, so we're broadcasting on Tuesday, we're recording on Tuesday today. So today, Tuesday the 26th of September, Phantom Liberty, their expansion came out, which is built on top of all the 2.0 changes, but also adds an expansion of content. And that was a paid expansion. All the 2.0 stuff, though, if you have the base game, is out there for free and ready to go, and does change the game quite a bit, and I'll talk about all the ways that it does. But that is going on still. Also in the news, Starfield they put out a little patch, and they talked more about the big patch not big, but the medium patch that's coming next after the little patch. So the little patch did go into effect already this week, and it was really focused around graphical fixes, a couple bug fixes that were sort of stopping people from playing and get it sort of making the game work properly in general. And they did fix some fun. Fun detected. We must fix that, which was a key one, which, again, they want the game to be balanced, and they don't want it to be too broken. But there was a couple places in the game where you could shove your face in a hole, or there was a puddle in one of the towns, and if you wiggled yourself down into this puddle, you actually got access to basically a chest with all of the inventory accessible from one of the big vendors in that town, that you could then just loot all of it and then go to the vendor and sell it all back to them, and kind of do that infinitely and sort of break the game. So yeah, they're fixing that. Two things on that. I'm perfectly fine that they're fixing it.
Yeah.
I didn't bother to use it.
I wouldn't call that fun detected.
Well, a lot of people do criticize the fact that it's hard to get rich in this game, and there aren't a lot of ways to get rich. I think it's actually quite balanced in that way, in an interesting way. So say you set up a big mining operation, and you extract all these minerals, and you try to sell them. It's hard to sell things because each of the vendors only has 5,000 credits. So even if you were going to try to make 1 million credits, you have to do it in this 5,000, 10,000 chunk at a time, and then either go to sleep, or you can sit on a chair and say, wait 48 hours, and then the vendors restock. So people don't like that. People want to just make a Tres Comas. They want to make 1 billion credits. That kind of breaks the game, and then you lose the progression, and people don't realize that if you do that, you'll quit sooner, because it takes the game part away. So I'm fine with that, and I didn't use those.
I guess that's what I meant. That's why I don't think of that as fun detective, because it's more game breaking.
Yeah, and there'll be if you want to break the game, there's console commands, and there's the add-ons and the creator's kit that's going to be coming out early next year, where you can break everything. You could just type, you could click 2 buttons and give yourself 1 billion credits. If you want to go break the game, you can go break the game. The base game being sort of nice and put together and balanced, I like that. So there was a tiny bit of a design aspect, though, that I thought was interesting, which was the fact that inventory exists in somewhat of a physicalized way, like it's a container of some kind that the vendors are dealing with. I thought was interesting. So I wonder if that's was the easiest way to implement it in their engine, or if there was some other reason that they did it that way, or what. But it gave me some ideas, some game design ideas for anything I might do in the future. Maybe that's the easiest, best way to do it. That chest thing is a common thing for Bethesda, Dent says. So yeah, maybe in their creation engine, that's just the easiest way to implement that. You can have an algorithm that fills that container, but it's easier just to have the container as a object in the game and just let the data flow around it that way. So that's cool. The next update that they're going to come out with that a lot of people are waiting on is slightly bigger, not a lot bigger, but slightly bigger, and really focused on tuning up the graphics and a little bit on the performance. Tuning up the graphics to support a lot of high-end display systems and a little bit on performance, and then one sort of quality of life update that doesn't fit in this list. So here's the 6 bullets of their list. Brightness and contrast controls, HDR calibration menu, field of view slider, NVIDIA DLSS support, 32:9 ultra-wide monitor support, and a button to eat food. Okay. Which of these things does not belong?
Is it really onerous to eat food without a button?
Kind of. Yeah. No, more than kind of, because food is spread all over the game. Everywhere you go, there's like sandwiches laying on the ground. There's the chunks. We talked about the chunks last time, right? Remember?
Right.
Chunks. Get your chunks. Well, you go into like a bunker when you're fighting people.
That did not make me want to eat chunks, but now I do want a sandwich.
When you eat chunks, you'll get like 3 health or 5 health out of whatever, 200. So you do heal up a tiny bit, but if you ate all the food in the bunker as you went along, you would get a little bit of healing up. It doesn't heal you to full. No amount of eating food. Like you'd have to eat like 50 things in your inventory to heal up to max. You could do like 1 healing med pack and you heal as much as eating like 2 Thanksgiving dinners completely for whatever reason. But if you got to like just look at each thing and have a button that said, all right, eat that thing, and then you might feel some use for all of the food that's spread around the world, because as it stands right now, you just ignore it. It's not even worth picking it up. And in fact, you find it in your inventory, and it's not even worth eating out of your inventory, because by the time you're sorting through your inventory, you're like on your ship and you could just like lay in a bed for an hour and heal to full, or, do a med pack or something.
So how long does an hour take?
To sleep for an hour, you mean?
Yeah.
Like lay in bed and sleep for an hour? It's just 1 click. It takes 10 seconds.
Okay.
We'll get to that when I talk about playing. What else happens during that 10 seconds?
Do you have, dreams?
No, but if you have a companion, other stuff happens, if you know what I mean. At least they allude to the fact that it does after the fact every single time. So we'll get to that. But yeah, so DLSS support is the big one. And for people that aren't familiar with DLSS support, that is some advanced AI scaling logic that creates extra frames in between each frame of video that's created by the game engine. So say the game can put out 60 frames a second and you have a 120 hertz monitor and you want 120 frames. DLS does this magical AI on the chip, in the hardware, on the graphics card that will make a bunch of the frames in between so you can get a full 120 frames a second. So big optimization, smooths out the game engine, cranks everything up to a new level. They had a version of that for AMD chips out of the box, and everybody was sad and criticizing them for not getting NVIDIA DLSS. And in fact, there's a third-party creator who does these kinds of DLSS updates as mods after the fact for games, and that there's one of those out for the game already. It's going to be officially in and supported relatively soon. So that's 3 cheers from everybody that's wanting that in. Which is weird for me because I have a really nice monitor, 1440p, so it's a 2K monitor, not 4K. I kind of like 2K better for gaming for a number of reasons. Older games especially, you put them on a 4K monitor, and sometimes the worst is LOTRO that does this. The menus then become like 4-point font on a 4K monitor. They don't scale. So that one is really bad with it, and everybody wants that fixed. But yeah, so my great monitor is only 60 hertz. So it's not a gaming monitor in that way. It's HDR. It's this beautiful picture. It's very crisp. It's a very nice monitor, but it's only 60 hertz. So I'm not in the, 120, 144, 250, 300 hertz monitor club. The people that play shooting games, first-person shooters, competitively, they need all of those extra hertz because for some reason they can see in hundredths of a second makes a difference. Their eyeballs are attuned to that or whatever, but they all say that it does, and it sounds like it does make a difference. It also sounds like it really smooths things out when you're like spinning around and you're turning your character. Visually, your brain does pick that up when you're doing fast motions and spinning your first-person character around. But now, Sema, the question potentially with a comma in it, that's a reference to the pre-show. Do I need one of these new monitors? Probably not. And you can get them for $300. But do I need it? Probably not. But maybe.
I think if you're going to adequately report on the gaming world.
Oh, you are an enabler. What are you doing?
Have you met me?
All right, because I did those two, I'll save my next one for after Sema's Cozy Corner. But why don't we switch over to you here for a second, Sema, and do a little Sema's Cozy Corner.
So we want to talk a little bit about Palia because they have yet another dev update, another one. It's kind of the biggest thing about it. Is that it's another one. But they are introducing another kind of a new thing, which they're calling obstacle course. But they make the comment that they have always had this plan for Palia where they would include other types. I'm conceptualizing them like mini games within Palia. So like this game, which is an obstacle course, is not exactly like playing the rest of Palia. I kind of think of it as how when you used to be able to play Bejeweled within WoW, but it's on the same engine and everything.
Yeah,
and you do it with your character.
With your character, right,
yeah.
Right. It's not like a mini game, but yeah.
But they are careful to mention that it's just a voluntary. If you want to do this, we think it'll be fun for you. But if you don't want to do it, there's nothing behind it that a cozy sim loving player would feel that they had to do this game, this game in order to acquire.
Now isn't that weird to you? And also, did you look at the picture of what they're saying this thing is?
Yes, it is. Well, it is weird to me because they specifically said, so you won't be missing out on a plushie, or all that you'll get is the bragging rights or whatever. I don't know if that will work. Really.
Well, for one, for two, I think they're saying that because just by the one, again, it's just one picture, but just by that one picture, it looks like nothing within the theme or the feel of Palia the world. It looks like a platforming obstacle,
right,
actiony
and they even use the word platforming, but I think it's going to rely on the Palia controls, right? Like you can already climb things just by hitting them with your body, and I think it's going to rely heavily on that. And then maybe you'll have to time things precisely to get things right or whatever. But yes, it looks completely different.
But who wants to do that?
Well, yeah, and if you want a platform game, there's ones out there that would scratch that itch probably better than this one, right? If that's what you want. And then there's no rewards for this. I don't know. We'll see. Maybe they know their community.
They also said it's an experiment in the same way that Coreborn did one of these. And Coreborn has always had in their design, and they've talked about it from the start, these adventure portals. And the one that they implemented, they too said, this isn't really what we intended, but they implemented something a little out of character too. It was almost like a little PvP. It was little guns that would like not, you had to like grab the mushroom, and whoever had the mushroom, everyone else had these little bubble guns, and you could shoot the person with the mushroom and they would drop the mushroom, and then you could pick up the mushroom, and whoever in this little arena grabbed the most mushrooms, then you sort of won the round and got your little points. But that's out of character for Palia, or for Coreborn, because Coreborn was very like cooperative, no PvP. Right. Except now the first thing that we're implementing of our adventures is PvP. Here, same thing with Palia. Cooperative, gathering, crafting, cozy. First thing we're implementing is some, action jumpy adventure.
Right.
But maybe it's just an experiment.
And I also, I used the words no reward. They didn't actually say no reward. They said no reward that a typical Palia player would feel they were missing out on. It's more about, accomplishment, the accomplishment itself, but they didn't actually say there'd be nothing.
And gamers don't care about like the sense of accomplishment or achievements or titles. Gamers don't care about that stuff. So that's, so we'll see. I would have just gone with something else. Even if they wanted to do an experiment, I would have had like a whole grove of trees, and the challenge is to see how many trees you can chop down before the timer runs out and you get ejected. And maybe, you can go with with friends and you get more trees, and however many trees you chop down, you get like a little reward based on how many trees.
Or even if you just went into a little house and you and 3 NPCs played cards or something, it'd be like more in keeping.
Yeah. Right.
But you mentioned trees.
Yes.
There's going to be more trees. Yeah, so like there's a rare tree called a flow tree, and they've been fielding the comments from people that there's not enough flow trees, and they're going to generate some more by way of making
trees, but yeah.
Oh, okay.
That's fine. No, it's actually a good idea because it gets a little bit of that collaboration going too, the way they described it.
And they're going to make these things called flare arrows, which they say are going to help you find each other, like if you're out in the world. And they gave a picture of it, and I don't think that would help me find anyone.
I think it's a good idea for the flow tree deal. So what happens when you're out in the world is you'll come across a flow tree, and any of like the medium and large flow trees, actually it's when you have the highest level of axe, it's only the largest flow trees that you can't cut down by yourself eventually. If you get other people, whoever gets one hit on the tree gets all of the wood that comes out of it. So if you want to be nice about it, you'll call other people for any flow tree. It's a pain.
So these are all reasons why it's a good idea, but my point was I don't think that green spot in the sky tells me where anybody is.
Yeah, it would help me, and you'd have to see it.
I could head towards it.
Yeah,
and it's in the sky for a minute, so that's a long time, and you could get a lot closer, and then someone could fire it again.
Yes, right. I think that's the idea, because right now you say, okay, look at the map. There's an area called, Big Falls. Right under about where the I is in the word big, that's kind of where that's how people describe where to go.
Okay, so what I'm thinking is what would help someone like me is if they put a flare on the map.
A pin on the map. Yes.
Then I would
Why
know
don't
where
you just put a pin on the map?
But it is nice. It is nice looking.
It is nice looking. Yeah. That'll help. Yeah, but that's true. Map pins would have solved this in every game from the history of time.
Yeah, right. They're also introducing proximity chat, which is a way right now when you chat, apparently it's like a general chat channel that everyone can hear. So it's hard to have, if you wanted to do some role playing or if you wanted to say things that are just meaningful to whoever's right in your, like maybe you're
Yep.
fishing with your friends. That is, I'm interested to see how well that works, because that traditionally a proximity chat has been like, well, did you hear me? Because I thought I
Right.
was close enough.
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Right. Right. And I think it's pretty interesting too that they're mentioning upgrades to, not upgrades, but a way of helping with inventory management.
Yeah.
So that you'll be able to store your ammo and bait in a separate pouch, which I guess is going to be big enough for your ammo and bait. But the
That
really nice
looks
thing,
enormous, but yeah. So
yeah, but I personally don't have any idea of how much ammo and bait you actually need.
a tenth of what they sort of showed
Oh,
in that
okay,
screenshot
okay.
at the most is all I would ever
I
carry
like
with
the
me.
idea of the quest pouches though. So basically you can pick up quest items to infinity.
Yeah, that would be
And
that would
that's
be,
I like that they made that
that's
change in
always
retail
useful.
while a few X packs back, and I really like that.
And SWTOR works that way too. And yeah, quest items
Yeah.
should never take away from your
But
actual
it did make
inventory.
me think about, why is inventory even, like, nobody likes playing inventory. Like, games are always like, here, we're going to help you with your inventory issue by this tiny, small change that's going to help you like 1%.
Yeah, that's a good game design question. Without inventory management, do you sort of lose a big, even though it's always feels painful and something that players that doesn't respect players' time, is that enough of the game where if you take that away, then it's doesn't feel like an RPG anymore? I don't know.
I wonder, like, I also I wonder if it's just a holdover, because like in the olden times, it was considered part of the fun of the game, and encumbrance and all that stuff, and making the decisions of what to carry with you and what to leave behind.
Yeah.
But we in 2023, we don't think it's fun anymore.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure.
I
Maybe
don't know. I do it a
maybe
lot in
I'm wrong. Maybe
Starfield
people.
and I kind of get into it. It's kind of like a thing I need to like think about and do. And like I'll get into these situations where I'm like overloaded, and then it's I I puzzle out how to best operate then being overloaded for the amount of time that I am, and what I'm going to do with the loot that I've picked up because now I'm overloaded. And you actually build yourself bigger ships so that they can hold more, and you build storage in your outposts so that they can hold more, and it creates all of these game loops because of it that would all
Oh,
go
that's true.
away if it wasn't there.
I do feel some satisfaction in Star Wars: The Old Republic or WoW or whatever game, when I'm able to clean up my inventory to a point where I feel I can go back out in the world again. So there's that. But
Yeah.
I don't enjoy it when I'm like in a raid or out in the world and I have to think, okay, what am I going to do now because I don't have room for this, or this system doesn't work because there's no room in my inventory, and
Yeah.
people are mocking me because there's no room in my inventory.
Or in Starfield, my companions are mocking me because my inventory got filled up. Do you need to pick up every little thing? If you pick
Well,
up something off a creature, they'll go, I
I
hope
guess
that's not going to stink later.
from the podcast I listened to, the NPR one, um, that's a Bethesda thing. You're not supposed to pick up everything. I guess you're supposed to decide
Yes,
before you pick it up,
that's
which
a good point.
I get that. I get that.
I pick up less and less as the game goes on too.
So basically, what we're saying is, if they made inventory not a problem, they would have to think up other things to take up those game loops that would be missing after
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. And maybe it would feel like less of a immersive world because of it. All right. I know there's a few other things in there. Any like final highlight out of that list? We'll have to
I
get back into Palia and try it out again once that update goes in.
I not really, although they did make a sort of comment at the end of of the notes that I did not get, that they haven't forgotten about one of the most popular requests, but then they don't say what it is.
Yeah, I saw that too. I don't know what they were. Is that like in the Discord? Everybody, what are the emojis after it? Strong arm,
Strong
hot dog, heart. That looks inappropriate.
I think what they're just saying is you guys have been you love this idea and you've been trying to strong arm us into it, but I don't get the hot dog. Maybe they're just going to learn from Baldur's Gate.
Exactly. They're going to add hardcore sex into the game. If you get married, well, then there's going to be happy fun times.
With
fully
bears.
Animated, naked characters with bears. All right, well, we'll see, because every game apparently has to add that now. Still,
I mean,
every forum post that floats to the top of everything that I see for Baldur's Gate is only about sex.
I mean, there used to be dogs in games that you couldn't pet.
There used to be. Oh, in fact, there's this. I'll remind me if I don't talk about the cat in Cyberpunk 2077 that they added an icon so that you know that you can pet it and you don't walk by without petting it.
I mean, are we looking at a future where you can't have a bear in a game that you can't have sex with?
Maybe. You have to be able to have sex with all the bears. One other thing that I wanted to throw in for news was Star Citizen, right? Mm-hmm. So Star Citizen had a relatively big alpha update again. Big for them. Doesn't actually have all that much content in it, but it was a big deal for them. It's their 3.20 update. And what went into 3.20 is mostly updates to the cargo hauling game loop, major part of the game. There's not a lot of things you can do in Star Citizen. You can fly your spaceship, you can fight other people, you can fight some pirates, you can mine, you can haul cargo. So cargo hauling and being like a trader and picking up cargo in one place and dropping it off in somewhere else. That's a thing in Star Citizen. That's a kind of a big deal. And a lot of people really get into it and they really like it. They did add this giant new ship that you can do this in called the Hull C. Right now, the Hull C is you can only play it by paying for it. You can't get it in the game yet, but in future updates, and this is what they do with all the new ships when they add them, is eventually you'll be able to like buy them with in-game credits. So yeah, that's a big deal, and they did make those updates. They did add the Hull C, and they did add some more bug fixes and a few other sort of smaller things. They added a couple missions. They changed the way some of the bunkers that you go and do some of the PvE missions in, which were very, very, you talk about people complain about, 1 in 10 Starfield bunkers that you might come across were the same. There's only one bunker in all of Star Citizen, and it's if you go to a bunker mission, it's that bunker everywhere on every planet. There's only 4 planets in the whole game, but you can fly from space down to the planet all in one. So it's better.
It's a different game.
Those 4 are better than the 1,000 in Starfield. Yeah, anyway, it's a different game. I really like Star Citizen. The 3.20 update is not as much as we would want. But it is, again, continued progress, them building the game. It's interesting to see these things continue to go in. It's getting them closer to their CitizenCon. So CitizenCon is their big sort of both in-person and press conference con each year, where they usually have some even bigger announcements. So hopefully we'll get bigger announcements coming out of that. And they'll tell us then that the game's going to be done next year. It won't be, but that's might be what they say. So yeah, something I'm still keeping an eye on, and I will be getting back into Star Citizen to try out the 320 stuff and hopefully server meshing, which brings a lot of the persistent universe across. Sort of, you get sharded into different servers. It pulls that stuff together in the way that they want sort of it to seem seamless from the player's perspective. That's the big infrastructure thing that they're really still working on. And then Forrester's asking about Squadron 42. Squadron 42 is a single player game. And there's nothing in 3.20 that talks about Squadron 42. That's expected to be coming out at CitizenCon. More announcements around Squadron 42. Hopefully, it was supposed to be released already, but that's kind of like a single player campaign game that you could have bought already as part of one of your packages. That'll have like voice characters and mission that you go on, and like a Mass Effect Starfield campaign type game set and working in all of the Star Citizen engine and universe that in theory also then feeds into all of the development they need to do to finish up what they call the PU, the persistent universe, the MMO version of the game. So it's all kind of tied together, but it's all delayed and it all should have been out 5 years ago. And it still probably won't be out for another couple of years at best. But still, as we've said in the past about Star Citizen alphas, it's playable now and you can get your money's worth out of it. Don't spend a lot of money because you can just play it in game and the stuff gets wiped and you just go back in and you'll, mine up some rocks and you can buy a bigger miner and you can buy all of the ships in the game and play it that way until they get close enough to the release where you see what you're actually going to want to settle into and have fun with in the future. You can definitely get your money's worth out of those baseline packages though, easily, or the free-to-play weekends. So look for that. So we're going to skip over this for now, Sema, but remind us in the future to keep an eye on the Writers Guild of America and the Screen Actors Guild having their work to get better contracts, and this sort of the strike that's been going on, the work stoppage with the movie industry, because there was some minor news this week and we don't know all the details yet, but it may be bleeding over into the games industry, especially with SAG-AFTRA. So we're gonna kind of watch that and see how that goes. We hope everyone can come to an agreement on the way this stuff should sort of work in the future. And we will be watching their career with great interest. All right. This podcast is brought to you by all of you. Thank you very much. We really appreciate everyone's support and your comments in our Discord. Had some great comments going back and forth on the Discord this week about some things that I'm going to try to do by putting chapter markers into the show this week helpful, on YouTube, especially because we're talking about all these different games. People might want to switch around and just hear about a particular game or go back to a particular game. We're hoping that everything we talk about, all the games, is sort of still interesting, but maybe it's not. So you can
right. We can hope.
So very much thank you for that. That's going on in our Discord. We're also on all the social networks. And thank you to everybody that's subscribed, especially recently on iTunes and YouTube. Anybody that can subscribe in those places, that helps us out a lot. Helps us see where things are happening and where people are interested. Thanks to the chat room here, who we talk to during the live recording. We're always chatting with them both before, during, and after the show. You all out there, anyone listening to this, can get links to all the ways to join, subscribe, or be part of the chat room. All of that stuff is at NewOverlords.com. This podcast is also brought to you by Alea Iacta Est, the big family-friendly gaming community where Sema and I play a lot of our MMO stuff in general. Our MMO guilds live there, especially and including our SWTOR guild on Starforge. You can jump in there. You can join us. All the links to get into our Discord, in particular for AIE, are at aie-guild.org. So again, thanks everyone. This has been a fun journey for us, and we're glad that you're all coming along with us. But right now, we've been playing some games.
It looks like meat's back on our menu, boys.
No way. God. Finally.
Kind of like the magical bread.
First up, I want to talk about, I don't want to bury the headline, even though I know it's not as interesting to you necessarily, Sema, but I'll tell you all about it.
Right.
I will tell you all about it. It is Cyberpunk 2077. Cyberpunk 2077. So, as I said, the 2.0 update went in on Thursday. I was playing a bunch over the weekend. I actually wanted to start like on Friday, and I created a character on Friday or even Thursday night when the 2.0 update went in. But I had Starfield stuff to finish up. And I'll get to my Starfield stuff too, because I finished the main story part first time. I'm still going to be playing Starfield, and I'll talk about why. But I needed to do more of that. That went through Saturday for me. So I did play enough Cyberpunk 2077 2.0 over the weekend and up through this morning, so now we're on Tuesday, to get up to the point in the base game where you get the intro quest to the Phantom Liberty expansion. I also pre-ordered the Phantom Liberty expansion. That dropped today, Tuesday the 26th, as I said. Phantom Liberty expansion adds a new zone to the world and a new story. And if you've seen the trailer, you see Idris Elba, you see a new character named So-Mi, you see the president in Air Space Force One or whatever sort of ship that they're flying in, and it crashes into this new zone called Dogtown. And that's where the adventure begins. So I'm going to talk a little bit about 2.0 and what I've done so far and why that has been fun. And then kind of like the decision that I need to make now, which gets kind of tricky because all of the stuff that they've added to 2.0, a lot of the recommendation, we talked about this last week, was you should probably start a new character. And you should start a new character because the systems have changed, and they have changed a lot in some really good, fun ways. But the systems have changed. Your characters will have changed. And if you take an old character and you upgraded it into the 2.0 world, you might be kind of like missing some things, or some things may not work, and you might have to just like respec everything, and starting from scratch may be your best bet. I took that to heart, and that's what I did. So I rolled a new character. You probably saw some of my pictures out there on the interwebs. Let me see if I can find a couple of my profile pictures. I already changed it. I created my character, and then I changed him. Where's the old face? Yeah, so I created this guy first, and I just changed the hair mostly because I didn't like the hair. But I went back to Corpo as my main stories. There are 3 sort of backstories, and they don't do a lot. They give you a couple different dialogue options, and they give you a couple different cutscenes in the beginning. But I did Corpo in my original playthrough at the launch of Cyberpunk. I did Nomads in my playthrough that was about 4 months ago. And then I went back to Corpo. I kind of like the interplay of Corpo backstory, getting sort of like kicked out of the Corp is sort of how you start off your story, and how that interplays back with what you're doing in Night City. The concept of Cyberpunk is anti-corporation. The corps are bad, and it's like corps are bad, the gangs are bad, and the interplay between what the corps have done and the way society has evolved has just made things kind of bad for everybody, even for people in the corps, definitely for people on the street. That's why all the sort of the gangs run the streets. And Cyberpunk is high tech, low life. All the high tech is there. All of the grit, but also the flashy lights, and is all coming together. And all of it, the punk part is rebelling against the system. Man. So I kind of like the idea of being the corp and then getting kicked out, and kind of almost interpersonal conflict of, do I want to get back into that life, or do I want to tear that life down? Do I want to destroy the corpse, or do I want to go back and be the corpse? And it's fun to think about it that way. So there's a tiny bit of backstory. So I did this as in my character creator on Thursday, and then I had to go real early because I didn't like how it looked in the game, and I shaved my hair off. And they have a really good photo system. So this photo is much better than that other photo, which was just a screenshot of the character creator, because you can do all the things where you can like set depth of field and move the camera around and do different framing and filtering. And I upped the brightness a little bit. And then you can also give yourself a facial expression. So I did this goofy, it's quote unquote disgust, but it was like some goofy, bad selfie facial expression that I thought was hilarious. So this is my character currently. So that's me, V. Everybody's called V. Whether you're male or female, they all call you V. The other big thing that they did with the 2.0 update is, which I thought was the most interesting and why I wanted to roll a new character, was they really broke down almost all the way to the ground the way your skills and attributes and perks work. And that is a little bit of a complicated system. So skills, attributes, and perks are are 3 different things that contribute to your stats. But what it really is the perks is what matters. Perks is your build tree, right? So you put stats into the different stats that you have. So that's sort of traditional stats. Intelligence, you could think of it as like strength, charisma, intelligence, dexterity. It's not called that. It's intelligence and reflex and body and tech and cool. Cool is like stealth. So body will give you, more sort of like strength-based things. So if you're using melee weapons and you want that kind of build, but you got to invest in body. Reflexes is more like, jumping around and maybe using some of the like ninja moves to move fast and dodge. And cool is stealthy game. Intelligence is all of the hacking and net running. That's where I like to play it. That's where I focus my time. That's where I put all of my perks. As you invest points, your attributes into intelligence and reflex, you get to a certain threshold, which opens up a new tier of perks. And there's really only 3 tiers of perks. And then there's major perks and then minor perks off of that in a little bit of a tree. They did a huge amount of work to rework all of those perks and all of the trees. Net running in particular got a big update. Instead of just a bunch of abilities and making those abilities stronger, your perks just made all of your hacking stronger, kind of. Made you be able to do more hacks and have more RAM to do more hacks and recover more RAM more quickly so you could do more hacks and your hacks were stronger. Now the perks open up different ways to synergize your hacks together, the way you might unload your net hacking on a field of enemies, such that now there's more. You have to take a much more thoughtful approach about how you would like to implement your hacks on the battlefield, which is kind of cool. So there's combos, and different combos work together with different perks, and the way you lay down your combos on the different enemies might give you back, a bunch of like health even. There's a system called Overclock and, Blood Demon that you can use your health to fuel more net running hacks on other people. You're like burning your own health to get more hacking energy out there into the field because you're overclocking your processor. It's actually burning you up while you're putting your hacks out there. But then once your hacks are out there, there's other perks that are sucking your health back out of the field of enemies and healing you up because of the way they're working. So you got to think through all that. There's builds out there that you can take a look at. That's where I spent my time, and I've been having a lot of fun with it. Couple interesting things, and I'll just mention skills, which I barely understand. The skills are a linear path, and as you use things, like I use a lot of net runner skills. I shoot a lot of people in the head, so I get more of my shooter skill points. The more you do it, the more skill points start ranking up. And if you find shards out in the world, they might give you extra skill points and rank you up. And every 5 points up to 60, you get like a little minor passive bonus. Much more of a passive system. I barely look at it. As you sort of progress and use the skills more and more, you get passive bonuses in them. That's all the skills point is. That's a minor point of the system. I think they could have gotten rid of it entirely and just rolled it into the perks potentially, but it's there. I'm having fun with the new system, the way the new net running works, the way the trees work, the attributes that you're putting into the perk tree, not your attributes, your perk points. You get those, and it only goes up to 20 in each of the trees. So I'm at level 20. I have enough to max out the tiers of the net running tree, the intelligence tree, and get a bunch of the perks up to the max level. I can't do all the perks, and I don't have enough of the perk points yet, but I'll get more. So I'm, even at a relatively low level, have a relatively complete build. I'm weak in other areas, like I don't have a lot of extra health like that I would get out of body. I don't have the stealth skills that I would get out of cool. I don't have the tech weapon skills that I would get out of tech. I'll be getting those as my character then goes through more levels beyond 20. But I've got enough that I can really play hard in the net running build and play all of it and really get a feel for it. And it's felt really good. So that's been fun. So that's what I've been doing. So I wanted to build up my character. I wanted to play enough of the story to get up to the point where I could unlock the Phantom Liberty story, and I wanted to feel enough of this net running build. Now, they did a couple other minor things, which I thought was interesting. Health packs, you used to like find them out in the world, and you'd have like a stack of, I get like 15 of them because I'm burning 5 or 10 in a fight. Now, health packs work almost like how they work in Diablo, where you get 2 charges. You can get a higher grade of health pack and slot it into the slot, but you get 2 charges, which charge back up over time. You just use a charge, it goes away, and it charges back up. There's no consuming of health packs anymore. Grenades, same thing. You slot a grenade, you get 2 charges, and they don't go away. That's not a consumable anymore. So they did a lot of that kind of streamlining too.
I think that makes a lot of sense in a single player game. I mean, there's no economy. You're not hurting anyone who's making those consumables.
Right. It does take away a little bit of a game loop though. So we were talking about those game loops like inventory.
Yes, right. But the game loop it's taking away is looking for healing things.
Right. I mostly like it. Like, 6% of the time I like it every time.
Right.
But there is like every once in a while I miss what you would be doing when you would be sort of going through a building where you've got to like clear out all the bad guys. You got to shoot all the bad guys so you can like save the person at the end. I miss trying to like seek out those health packs because now you really barely seek anything out because they also got rid of a lot of the loot and they definitely got rid of a lot of like the garbage that you would pick up. So there's much less looting going on. And it's much more just like kill all the things, maybe pick up 1 or 2 things in the room and move on. And you're no longer like seeking out where is that extra med pack. And I'm running out of med packs. I'm getting really low on health. But if I could just get there, if I could like sneak over and get that med pack, well then,
yeah,
it's a minor thing. And then crafting. Maybe I want to craft med packs. Minor things that streamlining does take away a little bit. And maybe, again, most of the time it feels much better, but it's a weird thing when it does go away and you kind of miss doing that extra thing. It's weird.
Yeah. It's in both WoW and Star Wars, The Old Republic, when they've made certain things account wide, I do have that sense of missing having to do that on every character.
Yeah. Right. Like in SWTOR when datacrons, which are little stat bonuses that you get, they made those legacy wide. That means it works on your whole entire, all your characters on the server. You used to have to, every time you rolled a new character, you used to have to go and seek those out. There was like 3 per planet. If
you wanted them. I loved that because, you get tired of questing and it's just like a little break. You go look for, you kind of know where it is. It's a little jumping puzzle. And
yeah. And maybe you'd get groups together to go do the more difficult ones. Now, nobody does that anymore. So
because, they did it in,
So it respects your time and makes it legacy wide. And everybody cheered and loved that they made it legacy wide. And we did love it. But
and people still love it.
You go, remember when we used to like get a group together and we'd go climb up on the sand crawler in the Dune Sea because there was that one datacron
we do still do from time to time because of new people.
New players in the game.
But yeah.
So remember Macab. There were some terrible ones too. Super hard.
Yeah. Osis. I don't like
Osis, Macab. Yeah, some crazy ones. So maybe we don't mess those. So yeah, some of that streamlining, it does take a little bit away, but it does streamline. And maybe it does focus more on the fun. And they definitely put a ton of work into this tear down and rebuild of the way all of this stuff works together. They made all your clothing cosmetic, and they took the stats used to get like armor stats on the clothing and maybe a couple bonuses. They took all of that off and they've made that part of your cyberware, which is you're maybe going to slot in some armor in your cyberware. And there's only so much that your body can handle. Your ego's writing checks your body can't cash. So over time, you build up more and more, and maybe you slot in some extra perks that give you more capacity in the cyberware that you're able to mod your body with. That's a really good system. They're doing a good job with that.
So would you say in general all these changes are making the gameplay more fun?
I would say yes. They're also making it, yeah, they're making all of the systems a little bit more cohesive, make a little bit more sense, make different builds more interesting, and probably in some ways maybe even making things a little bit harder, especially because they even upgraded the difficulty levels of the hardest difficulties. It's like I'm playing on normal, there's like easy, normal, hard, and super nightmare. I'm playing on normal, and normal almost feels a little too easy. I've heard super nightmare is nearly impossible for most people, which is good. So now really having to focus on and getting use out of synergies and not getting immediately overpowered just because you maxed out a tree, but having to put different abilities together and care about how you're playing in the moment. That's a good thing. That's better gameplay overall. So yeah, I think that's good. Couple other things I'll sort of skip over because if you look at their 2.0 update, they made a big deal of it, but I haven't really gotten to it yet. Vehicle combat, you can stick your head out the window like Ace Ventura, or like a dog sticking their head out the window to shoot people while you're driving, but you can also have weapons mounted to cars now. I haven't really gotten into that. It's not really, those situations don't come up in the base game as much. I think they will in Phantom Liberty. They mentioned the new police system, and they mentioned a lot around the police system as a part of this. The AI and the world in general, all of that's been updated in a really good way. In fact, do I have some video of just like driving around the world and kind of what that looks like? It's very cool the way the systems work now. In the traffic you encounter on the street is more real. Like cars will change lanes, and if you cut them off, they beep at you, and it always did that a little bit. They've made it much more real, and it does. It feels really real just driving around on the streets. Pedestrians do less stupid things like walking out into traffic. That feels real. The stoplights, cars stop at the stoplights, and if you have a red light and you keep going, you might get sideswiped. So that feels really real. The downtown areas feel really busy. Pedestrians on the sidewalk feel more real. The AI, when you fight enemies, they do much better job at dodging and ducking behind cover, and that feels more real. And then the whole police system, which doesn't really affect me because I'm not encountering the police as much, but you see the police on the sidewalks, and if you do something bad, like you carjack somebody because you needed a car, the police, if they see you do it, and now there's police all over where there kind of weren't before, they'll come after you. And then there's tiers of police. There's like, you have like a 1-star wanted, and if you get up to 4 stars, a warrant goes out for your arrest. Well, then Max TAC comes. And Max TAC is like the elite squadron unit that drops from the sky, and they're bad news. They will take you down. So the world does feel souped up from that perspective. And then I mentioned this last week. The other way the world feels really souped up for me is ray tracing. A little bit, you can see it flashing by here as I'm walking around. Every reflection, every puddle is all ray traced, which means you can see much more detail. The world looks much more real, and the way it flows, and then the performance of the world is much more real, which feels really good. So all of that is really fun to just experience, and that's going to be good going through.
So when you play this game, are you going to run into Idris Elba?
Mm-hmm. So the part that I'm showing on the screen right now is just the very beginning of when you get the first phone call and it tells you to go to Dogtown. So I go to Dogtown, and I haven't met Idris Elba yet because I haven't really gone into Dogtown. I went to the entrance, and the other character, she shows up, and she shows up in an interesting way. And sort of lays it out. Hey, the president's plane has crashed. Help me, Obi-Wan Kenobi. You're my only hope. Pretty much, almost literally. Almost, are you sure I'm your only hope for this? And she's like, yep, you're the only hope. So she tells you gotta come in. You gotta help. From there, I think once you get into Dogtown, I think the story will unfold, and maybe that's where you're going to run into Idris Elba, and then maybe you get to decide the ways in which you're going to help, and why, and what
Maybe
else
you
is going
can
on.
share a quesadilla together.
Burritos are a big thing in
Well, he mentioned a
Cyberpunk.
quesadilla in
Oh,
the
did he?
trailer.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's right. Right. He's going to go back to that place. I don't think the place he was talking about is in Dogtown. Dogtown
No.
is supposed to be pretty
No,
bad news.
It'd be far future. Don't eat in Dogtown. That sounds dangerous.
There's a new gang introduced. I forgot what they're called. Some dog related name, not Rottweilers, but there's the new
Pitbulls.
gang. They're all the yellow carrot that you saw, the highlighted characters that were all in the entry to Dogtown here. Here I am freaking out in my introduction, and who's there? Oh, it's So-Mi. Who we don't know if we like, especially looking at the trailer. I don't know if I like her or trust her or what the deal is, but she says she needs my help. And you still see Johnny Silverhand over in the back. That's Keanu Reeves. He's still around.
Well, Idris likes her.
Well, he did. I don't think he likes her anymore because at the end of the trailer, or did you? I don't. You get it. It's all in the trailer.
Okay,
You didn't. I know it got super
maybe
violent.
I didn't.
I told you not
maybe
to
I
watch
didn't.
it.
Okay,
No,
but I
she
did see the
burned
part
him.
where. Oh, okay. I was thinking of the part where he says, you should get a medal. You're
Yeah,
fantastic.
and that's the part right then in the trailer is when she's got a tear in her eye and she presses the enter button on her keyboard
Oh,
that shuts down the train and and sends in the mercenaries to kill him.
hey, Keanu Reeves.
But she's like, she's crying. She's got a tear in her. It's done really well. You see that she doesn't want to do it, like she was ordered to do it or whatever. But yeah, she did it. So I wonder how that's gonna. I wonder how that's gonna happen. How that's gonna work out.
Yeah.
But anyway, I'm at this point just to wrap it up, and I'm gonna play a bunch this week. But I'm gonna have to decide really tonight after our mandatory fun night in SWTOR. When I come back to this, am I going to continue to play this level 20 character that I leveled up over the weekend, or am I going to start a brand new character which will level you up? I don't know how far it levels you up, but it'll sort of like boost your character up to the start of Phantom Liberty. Or am I going to grab one of my old characters and try to bring them into the 2.0 world? It's a conundrum for me because I don't like the state that my 2.0 my new 2.0 character is in. So either I'm going to want to play and put at least a handful more levels on my 2.0 character, or I'm going to want to do one of those other paths. And if I want to just play Phantom Liberty, I might do. I'm now leaning towards one of those other paths, because even as recently as 4 months ago, I did the Nomad character, and I played through more of the game than I played through originally. I finished the story. I didn't finish the story with the Nomad character, but I played through all of the side stories more. I finished the Delamain sub-story, which is an AI that runs a taxi service, and he's got 7 of his taxis the AI has gone rogue. And one of the taxis now has the personality of GLaDOS from Portal. And she tries to kill you. And each one has a little mini story when you go track down the cab, and you got to do a little mini game with it, to chase it down and so Delamain can get it back. So there are all these fun things that I did in these other playthroughs. New characters to meet. Rivers is a cop, cop just trying to do his job, and his nephew gets captured. You got to do this whole thing to rescue his nephew. And then there's all the Pan Am stuff. I don't know if I want to do all that again and do all that in the next week before I can play the Phantom Liberty stuff. But I feel like if I don't, it's not time to do Phantom Liberty. So I'm probably going to do one of the other mechanisms. I'm probably going to roll a new character and just see how that feels. And if that doesn't feel good, then I'll probably grab one of my old ones. even though they might be a little janky because they didn't start in the 2.0 world. So that's where I'm at with that. So more on that next week, and we'll see where it goes. I think I'm going to have fun with it regardless. All right. I know that was a ton, but it's a big deal right now. This is some fun stuff going on in the Phantom Liberty. But I did want to hear about you, Sema, and what's going on in the many worlds of Warcraft.
What have I been playing?
Yes.
Well, I have been playing hardcore. I did start a priest in hardcore and been leveling her, which it has been fun for two reasons, right? It's been fun because, playing with a group of friends and interacting on Discord and tracking everybody's progress, and that's been real fun. But also it's fun because of Deathlog, which is the add-on I mentioned before. You basically get an announcement whenever somebody dies. And so you can kind of track it, kind of in my in my head, it kind of follows my journey too. It's sort of like when I see a Deathlog announcement and somebody died at level 8 in Durotar, I'm like, ha, I survived that. Whatever, because I'm like level 9.
Oh, so a little Schadenfreude, little.
Yes, and you have to do a little interpreting too, because apparently the AI is open and it's not too hard to hack, and so people are doing some sort of
gaming it a little bit.
Yeah, gaming it a little bit. So like recently there was a Deathlog entry of someone who died at level 60, killed a Tauren druid killed by Thrall.
Okay.
I'm like, that probably didn't happen. So yeah, I've been enjoying that. We did have a group go in and do Ragefire Chasm, which is the very first dungeon. And I didn't go. I wasn't ready to go, but I was in Discord with them, and it was really funny. It's sort of like they were CCing and, trying not to get aggro. And I totally see the possibility of doing dungeons in the future and being way overconfident and everybody dying.
Yeah.
Because they were way over careful, or possibly they were over careful in Ragefire Chasm.
Here, I've got some of the Deathlogs up. The last words you turned me onto this. It's the last word. So it shows you the level, it shows you the location and zone that they were in, what they were killed by, and then their last words. So killed by King Mulka, last words, I'ma try it.
Yes.
Galactus, death, level 22. Trust me. Yeah, these are pretty hilarious. Bryant's death, Mushroom Kingdom Guild Hunter, where did he killed by a Vile Branch Soul Eater. Last words, can we really do this? Yeah, this is great. This is great stuff.
I saw a character whose name was Last Try, seriously.
Yeah, a lot of people are naming when they re-roll after they die. They're naming like, Bob 2, Bob 3. So when you get to like Bob 18, somebody's been having a rough time.
Yeah. And so I was just commenting the other day that I should definitely die and just get at least one out of my system. And so we were sort of brainstorming about, make a level 1 but before you die, say something really hilarious.
We have a channel in our Discord for WoW Classic called the Hardcore Graveyard. So in theory, people are supposed to be posting their death notes and memorializing their character in there.
Yes,
and there've been plenty of deaths.
Yep, there have been. In fact, the game as a whole, I mentioned this before, and now I understand it. But on the first day, there were something like 90,000 deaths. So I get it now. I get it. It's like people. I watched a few videos too about like how to not die in hardcore, and I'm like, this is all common sense stuff. However, I think what goes on is people have been playing other versions of WoW, and they're just learning bit by bit that you can't do what you can't do and what you can do.
Yeah. And also, so I only played up to level 12. But even during that time, things that never would have killed me. Like, never would have phased me if I had rolled in Classic, and I never would have died anyway. But you also get yourself into a situation where you like overthink.
Yeah, absolutely.
And will end up freaking out, running the wrong direction, deeper into the cave, and then killing yourself.
I have a thing with caves anyway. I've died many times in caves. Just
well, everyone says
because I get turned around. Yeah,
and it's the
respawn, and I
get
turned around, and you're out of mana, and blah blah blah.
Yeah,
I already have a habit of, I don't go into a cave unless my hearth is up, so that if I want to, I can just leave. Because I get frustrated in caves because my gamer GPS just abandons me in caves. That's just a SEMA thing. That's not an indictment of caves by itself, but yeah. Well, I like in every character as I hearth to Orgrimmar, which is the main city on the horse side, and I want to get down to the bank or the trading post, which we call the auction house. I just hop down the roofs of the buildings. I go bloop 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 bloop, and it doesn't take hardly any of your health when you land on you hit the ground. But now in hardcore, I'm like, well, I don't want to miss. I don't want to get in a crack in the terrain or something. I'm like, I'm going to go around by the stairs. No.
I was clenching up and freaking out at level 10 in Thunder Bluff with those giant elevators and the edges of these giant bluffs.
Right. It's not that I think
I've thrown
I'm going
myself
to
off
miss
there
stuff.
before for fun.
Well, as have I, off of everything.
Right. And now
in every game.
But there's a word for it where your brain, thinks like the reason you feel so
it's
freaking
called
out
disasterizing.
Disasterizing, where you're like at the edge of a cliff and you think of throwing yourself off.
Or, well, I was thinking more of you can only think of the disaster level things that outcomes of something that you're doing. Like if I drive to work, what if I get in an accident? And then you start picturing,
right.
Yeah.
So there's that, and like looking at outcomes, but I'm also thinking about the brain trick where the inhibitions, your brain thinks through the sort of like overthinks the inhibitions when you're like standing up in a high place, like, oh, what if I threw myself off of here? And then that's why you get like afraid of heights and things like that. So I go up on the elevators and I'm like physically pulling my fingers away from the keyboard because there's like some weird twitch in the back of my brain. Like, well, what if I just tapped the up arrow right now?
Yes. I'll just hit my W key.
Yeah. What if I did that? What if I just hit W right now? And like, oh wait, no, don't. I will die. It's permanent. And I will have wasted the couple hours to get to level 10.
Yeah. And it's more than a couple hours.
Yeah.
And so which reminds me, one of the things that people do is you start out in your starter zone and you level up to 5 or 6, and then you go out into the sort of next layer of starter zone, and you level up to like, I don't know, 8 or 9 or whatever. But you start to get quests in your log that are for level 10, level 11, level 12. And instead of doing those quests, you go all the way over to the other continent and you do the starter zone over there.
Right.
And you get a couple more levels, and then you come back and continue your journey with those quests, because that's just wisdom.
Or maybe you just kill boars until you're level 6.
We had this conversation about what's the best spec if you're leveling a warlock, and people were saying this, that, and the other thing, affliction lock, and I'm like, I really enjoyed leveling my affliction lock in Wrath, because what I would do is I would dot up, I would put like a damage over time spell on a bunch of different mobs, and then I would just fear them, and then they would just like run all over the place, and sometimes they would bring more mobs back and sometimes they wouldn't. I just enjoyed that because it was scarier.
Mm-hmm. But now you're not going to do that.
That would be That would be hellishly stupid to do in hardcore.
That would be insane. Fear. In fact, you should
And-
take fear off your keyboard.
And it would
your
endanger other
bars.
people in the area too.
Yeah.
Because it's possible to train your mobs onto someone else if the way tethering works, if they happen to be in proximity when they come back to the end of their tether and they're still in combat, they can pick you up. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I would hate it if I was responsible for someone else dying.
Yeah. So have
Which
you
is why
done
I'm a
any of the
healer.
group stuff yet? Are you gonna
No.
jump in with
We're I
Lars?
don't know.
I see Lars in our chat room right now. But
Yeah.
you're gonna jump in with them and do
if they
a
make
dungeon?
me, I'm
Well,
afraid.
this is like why you rolling a priest, isn't it? You're not rolling
No.
a priest to heal yourself.
I rolled a priest because I like Shadow Priest.
Oh, okay.
And I feel like it's got a high survivability because I can heal myself.
Oh, there you
So
go.
I guess I am rolling it to heal myself.
Okay.
But yes, maybe. I don't know. It depends. Like, I don't want to make them run RFC. Yeah. Yeah, Lars says, we have Ragefire Chasm on farm. Yeah, I mean, literally
Do
you
it.
do. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'll be fascinated. I almost think we need to get you like
I don't think I'm brave enough to heal it though. Hilarious is healing and he's handling it very well, and I don't think I want to heal.
It's it's got to be a ton of pressure because if you let somebody die, boy, they're like.
Well, I mean, and to tank too. So Lars is tanky. I mean, you guys, I salute you.
Yeah, that's crazy. So I almost think we need to get you like OBS just so you can record.
Yeah.
Especially like if you go do something really dangerous.
Yeah.
Because then we can get you to record your death if nothing else.
What
and
I
if you
haven't
do
seen,
get the death log, definitely take a picture of your death log screen. Take a screenshot.
I personally haven't seen on the death log. I haven't seen a group wipe. So like every once in a while, you'll see somebody died in Scarlet Monastery, and you think, well, how come just you died? Did your group leave you, or
did you leave you? Yeah.
Yeah. Or then I wondered if maybe Deathlog, if there's a bunch of deaths all at once, it just can only process one. But someone in the Discord said they had seen wipes before, so
yeah,
kind of curious about that.
Interesting. Well, that's not the only World of Warcraft that you've been playing.
I've also been playing Wrath, and the reason that's getting exciting is because
that's classic Wrath. So that's still not even retail. It's
still not even retail. You're right, classic Wrath. So, which is from whatever 2012 or whatever, I don't know, a long time ago. So there's going to be I almost said new raid. Old raid is going to come out in a few weeks, and we're getting the raid team back together. We're getting the band back together, and we've been doing some instances. Right now, there's a holiday going on, Brewfest, so we've been getting together in evenings to kill the Brewfest boss so our tanks can get a trinket that they want. So we've been doing that. I personally got a mount that I wanted, which is good and exciting because we have account-wide mounts coming up. So it doesn't matter that I got it on a character that is not my main. My main is going to get this mount anyway, which is the Brewfest Ram, the Swift Ram, which I've wanted. I just have always wanted. I got the Kodo, and I'm like, this isn't fair. I wish I could give this Kodo to someone or trade it for the Ram. But yeah.
I have.
So, go ahead.
It's not playing. I have some of the Wrath clips. It's interesting to go back and see some of this Wrath stuff.
Welcome to the trials of the Crusader.
Yikes!
That is one of the instances we've been running. Is there's a 5-man trial of the Crusader before the raid trial of the Crusader. So we've been doing the 5-man because the raid's not here.
Right.
But it does involve, the sort of janky vehicle. You have to get on your wolf and stab at things with your lance. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
But I do remember that.
Collecting currency so we can buy more gear so we can be, you know, more baller when Ice Crown Citadel comes out.
Yeah. And then, so it is, so the Arthas fight isn't in the game yet?
Correct.
Okay. So you're getting the extra wings to the Citadel, or is any of the Citadel in yet?
Nope, not even the 3 dungeons
Okay.
are not in yet, which our raid leader advises us that we should understand that we're going to have to run a bunch of dungeons before we're ready for the raid, which I'm fine with.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's part of the deal and
Yeah.
how that
That,
works,
yeah,
especially
that's
in WoW.
that is how it works.
And in a fun way, because then and that's kind of like the progression that's built into WoW, and you kind of that's what you should be in for. That's kind of how WoW works is you do that progression in those early places to get the gear and to get to the next bit of progression, to get the gear, to get the next bit of progression. But there's a bunch of repeating that content while it's current to you so that you can gear up everybody and get everybody else out.
Yeah. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
Now,
and then retail, I know almost nothing about the new developments in retail since I started. I kind of just fell in love with Wrath. I mean, Classic, because I've been playing Vanilla and then Burning Crusade and now Wrath. But we have had some announcements this week. One is that Chris Metzen has returned to a full-time role with Blizzard, and he's going to be called Executive Creative Director. No news yet on what that actually means.
Right.
Yeah, other than to say his main, like it says on the screen there, his main focus is supporting the World of Warcraft leadership and crafting the next generation of adventures. So I kind of think that means he's going to be giving input to like what the new adventures are going to be. Like the next thing coming is this patch containing the Emerald Dream.
Yes.
So beyond that, for sure. Although he has been consulting with them, so he might have been instrumental in that. I don't know.
Right. He's been around for a little bit, and this was telegraphed that he was jumping into this kind of role, and so now it's official, and he's taken on this role as a executive creative director. It remains to be seen though what the impact of that is. It's clear that Chris, as one of the original authors of the Warcraft universe, has the potential to have a lot of impact, but it's not like he was there at launch and not since. So
yeah, right. So like people are saying, "Oh, great! Now WoW will be, make Azeroth great again." Well, he was along for that whole ride up until the last few years.
Right. And even in the last few years, a lot of that stuff was getting like designed and worked on
Right.
still back when he was around. But not to downplay.
And also
Chris, it could be really great, but
if you think of like, I know what everyone has their personal idea of the heyday of WoW, right? But if you think of your heyday of WoW, I personally don't know, and you might not know either, how much of that was Chris Metzen and how much of that was the other intensely creative and talented people working at Blizzard.
Yeah.
So I don't know how much effect he can have. I'm waiting to see.
Right. So that'll be the interesting journey, and it'll be interesting to hear from him. A couple people said maybe we'll hear from him directly at BlizzCon.
Mm-hmm. That's what they're saying.
We'll be interested to see how that works out. I also thought it was interesting that it says they keep referring to the Warcraft universe and not just World of Warcraft. No, and none of this said that he's like. Well, it says right now his main focus is supporting our World of Warcraft leadership and crafting the next generation adventures, but it's broader than that.
Right, because I think that includes the RPG, Warcraft, and then maybe they're envisioning
maybe other projects.
Something mobile, and I know they've talked about having a
Well, there's Warcraft Rumble. There is the mobile. There's like the little mobile fighting game already, and who knows what else. So again, that might be another place where Chris is in this position to provide guidance and influence as creative director across a bunch of things, and World of Warcraft, maybe World of Warcraft. And, he's supporting, but it's not like Chris is now sort of, the only person in the driver's seat, and we're going to get stuff directly from Chris. So everybody get your expectations in the right place, and let's not put too much pressure on Chris either.
Yeah, I'm avidly waiting to hear what he has to say.
Yeah. And maybe we'll try it. Maybe we don't need to talk about it too much today, but maybe we'll try it, and then or maybe get somebody on who's tried it. But where retail is at, I'm kind of lost. I did look into this, what they're adding in, and Emerald Dream is now being added in as sort of like a mini part of the existing expansion, and I know people have like always wanted Emerald Dream, but it doesn't look like anything. I mean, it looks nice as ever. Good World of Warcraft art, but it looks like all the Emerald Dream stuff we've already always seen in the game, the bits that we have seen, and they're like, but now it's like a whole area. Okay, and I don't know. It doesn't. It's gonna be a raid. There'll be an Emerald Dream raid. There's still bad stuff going on. It's not just the Emerald Dream. There's like this fire guy. I don't know who he is, but
right. But I think we're supposed to know who he is. Like we would have known if we were playing retail all this time.
Right. So we got some catching up to do. So let's maybe we'll do some catching up. Because
no.
Well, maybe we'll get somebody on who's been doing some.
Yes.
Make someone else
better answer. Yeah, because it's
rack.
I mean, this is not a criticism, but it's very time consuming. That is what an MMO is.
Even just catching up on the story is super time consuming.
Yes. And when they talk about, like in this video that you're showing, when they talk about adding activities to the Emerald Dream Zone, what they're talking about is the things that are time consuming. They're like events that you run and you collect seeds and then you use them to grow things. I mean, that sounded like farming. It's not like that. It's all combat related, but it takes you X number of encounters to get the number of seeds you need to put the magic seeds in the magic spot, and then you grow the thing, and then you do another encounter because now you have the thing, and then you do X number of those encounters. It's a lot. And every drop of WoW has been that for a while, just more activities that you have to do. And the end result is gear.
Right. Again,
so
another tier of gear, and
if you
catch up on it.
If you have played MMOs like I have since the dawn of time, I'm not as in love with upgrading my gear as I used to be as a process.
Right. Especially when you've been out of it for a little bit. And then you come back and you're like, wait, but you're like two sets behind.
I will say, though, they did implement a thing in retail WoW where if you haven't logged in for a while, when you do go to log in, you can click a button and it will update your gear to like a current-ish level.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So you're not, and it will redo your skill tree to a current state. So you can, if you haven't played for a while, you can tell yourself, hey, I can drop in and see what's up because I'll have the gear and I'll have talents at work. They might be the ones you would change. I mean, you can always change them later. They might not be the ones you would pick, but it doesn't really matter. You want to check it out, right?
Yeah. That's
which I think is pretty brilliant.
Yeah. That's going to help a lot. All right, so we'll see. We're going to keep our eye on that, and we'll hear when it comes out. I have seen a lot of people, I don't know, maybe coming back to the game, more people playing retail than I had seen in the past, getting excited about some of the new things. So that's fun to see.
The recent content, see, that's adorable.
That little deer.
Yeah, that little deer kicking,
jumping around.
I mean, they do adorable well. I think what's adorable in WoW is like 1,000% more adorable than anything in Palia.
Yeah, they do a good job of some of. Yeah, what is that thing?
Or maybe it's because WoW is kind of my world. I don't know, but that's pretty adorable. Anyway, the last couple of content drops have been very popular. People have found them really fun, so
that's good.
It may be fun to go back and try it out.
We'll see. We're going to have to ask somebody. One thing that I've been playing, as I said, getting back to before I got into Cyberpunk 2077, is I did finish up the main story of Starfield. And I did push a little bit, and maybe a little bit more than I needed to, but I did finish up the main story of Starfield. There's a bunch of the side stories that I kind of skipped over, and there's pros and cons to doing that. So what I'm going to say now is kind of a little bit spoilery. I'm not going to get into detailed story spoilers, but it will spoil a little bit of like New Game Plus and what goes on to get you there. If you've heard about or seen any of the videos that say why you might or might not want to sort of rush the main story to get to New Game Plus, that's what I'm going to talk about right now. Just sort of fair warning. So this is going to last about 10 minutes, and then we'll wrap up with a little SWTOR, and we'll wrap up for the day. But that's what I was focused on. That's what I wanted to do. I got to a point where I wanted to get into Phantom Liberty. I also wanted to answer this question for myself about getting to New Game Plus and what that was like. Because what happens with New Game Plus is you're starting a new game. You do get to carry over your stats and your abilities that you've built up and your level, but kind of nothing else because you're sort of starting a new game. However, and here's sort of the little bit of the spoilery part, the deal with New Game Plus in Starfield is the story. The whole story is kind of built around this idea of New Game Plus and how it works in such a way that I almost feel like Bethesda might have looked at the way people play their current games and, hey, people replay this stuff over and over again. They keep rolling new characters and they go and play Skyrim again and they go play Fallout again. What if we wrote a story where it made sense for you to do that, and that was part of the story to go do what people are doing anyway? And that's kind of what they've done. So again, a little bit of a spoilery bit, and it gets telegraphed relatively early. Kind of. It's or kind of multiverse, or kind of. If you ever seen the show The Flash, he's always like going back in time and like resetting the universe, and then it's like a reboot. So it's that you play through this story, and then you get to kind of go back and reboot the universe because it is this multiverse, and that's kind of what you're realizing through what you're doing in the main story. These artifacts that you're creating, these powers that you're getting, that's all, and this story that you're uncovering, you're realizing, and they're letting you know that it's a multiverse, and this reboot is part of that multiverse and part of that story and part of the artifacts and everything that you're going through. So mechanically, why might you want to just go through, and this is sort of what the videos have all talked about, is why might you want to sort of rush through and get into it and go into New Game Plus? Because it does wipe all of the other stuff that you might have been working on. So if you built up a really cool ship, for example, or you collected a bunch of ships that you really like, or you built an outpost, all of that stuff gets wiped out. All your ships are gone, all your outposts are gone, all your companions are gone, all of that stuff resets. So if you wanted to put a whole bunch of work, and this is one thing I do want to do, into what I sort of described in the past, this network of outposts that are all mining resources, and this cool network, even though it doesn't add that much to the game, and you don't need it very much, or like getting a million credits or a billion credits or whatever you're going to try to do, you might want to get yourself enough through New Game to New Game Plus to satisfy maybe seeing that and understanding what's going on there, and wipe everything then and then do it for real. And that's kind of the way I ended up wanting to play it. If you don't want to do that, you might want to just ignore New Game Plus is the other way to do it, and play all of the faction stories and build up all your stuff and live in this world. They foreshadow early in a really interesting way this choice that you're going to have to make. Both, even just the mechanical choice is also foreshadowed from a story choice perspective. And they're sort of like your companions are sort of talking to you about it and what you're realizing in the story. They're sort of saying, we all might be leaving this all behind. What do you sort of like think of that? And they just like seed that in your mind to think about it. And in that way, you're also thinking about it for how you're going to physically actually play the game and your game saves as well, which I thought was really, really fascinating. And I wonder how much that they did, if they did, they built that idea into the story, almost like wrote a story around it. People might, and people have said, oh, the main story, it's a little bit underwhelming in some ways. And maybe it is. I think it really heats up in the second half and gets interesting enough to be a full main story and just as good as a main story anywhere else. It's not super groundbreaking. It's not the best thing ever. And you sort of see some things coming, but you get some interesting choices to make. But then, yeah, how it all wraps up, that does get the idea of what you need to think through gets telegraphed, and you do have choices to make. And what you do by the end mirrors what you're going to do with your saves. And I think that's cool. I think that's really cool how they did that. So what am I going to do next? And this is sort of the way I'll be able to talk about Starfield in the future. New Game Plus, rebooting everything and playing again. That doesn't have to happen even necessarily just once. And there are reasons to maybe reboot everything multiple times. In fact, it does cap out eventually. And it sounds like around 10 times is when everything sort of like caps out, and rebooting the universe after that doesn't have much effect besides just wiping everything so you can just like start playing again. So am I satisfied with my one reboot? I'm probably going to stick with just the one New Game Plus one. There's a little part of me that's thinking, well, I could go New Game Plus 2 or maybe plus 5. So I don't know. I'm gonna think about it. I'm gonna make those choices, and see where I'm at. The one thing that I'm somewhat disappointed in is you do not get to, you don't get to redo your perks, sort of your backstory. So your backstory sort of sticks.
You lose all your stuff, but you're stuck with your decisions.
You're stuck with the character create decisions. So it's like a couple minor things, but like here I'm showing one of the scenes that I just sort of described before. I picked the parents as one of the perks.
Yes.
So I meet up with my parents periodically in the game, and I didn't do enough of the side stories. I think you meet up with them in like
and they try to avoid you, don't they?
Well, here. This is the scene that I'm showing here is this nightclub in the cyberpunk city called Neon. And Neon is very like Nar Shaddaa. It's very, Las Vegas, cyberpunk of the future. What happens in Neon stays in Neon. And you go into like this very famous nightclub that's like famous for this drug that everybody does in this nightclub, and there's this techno music.
Famous for its depravity.
And you run into your parents and they're like, hey, what are you doing here? Well, what are you doing here? And that conversation goes back and forth. And basically they say, how about if we don't ever talk about this again by the end of the conversation? So I like having them. I like having the parents, but I wouldn't mind trying a couple of the other perks. I bet through mods, when those sort of go into full swing, or maybe even through a console command, I could turn on some of the other perks. The two that I feel like I missed out on one is called Wanted. And what Wanted does is it tells a bunch of the mercenaries, you get like a contract on your head. And a bunch of the bad guys, the bad guys now have this contract. And so periodically, while you're just out playing and doing other things, bad guys will show up and try to kill you. But that's sort of exciting. And then it's extra fights and extra adventure and combat, and things get scary. I wouldn't mind having that going on. And then the other one, which is very famous, is called the Adoring Fan. And what the Adoring Fan is a character who's actually a throwback to a character that has come up in other Bethesda games. I think it was Skyrim in particular. But it's a companion you can get, and the Adoring Fan is just gushes over everything you do. You can add him on as a companion, and he's just like your biggest fan, and he brings you presents. And if you put him on your ship, every time you do anything on the ship, like you land, he's like, another perfect landing. Good job. I wouldn't mind. I wish you could pick him up.
Is that a Skyrim reference in Starfield, that arrow to the knee? Or is that from Skyrim?
That's also another Skyrim reference.
Well, I know it's a Skyrim reference.
Yes.
Is it actually in Starfield? It's funny.
Yeah, it doesn't, it never says arrow to the knee, but that picture obviously is is a reference. It's in one of the sort of abilities that you can rank up called crippling. Yes, so you can see these are a couple this is my Easter egg. So the Adoring Fan is an Easter egg. The arrow to the knee there, that's an early Apple computer, on one of the earliest Apple Macs. You do find some of that cool stuff. There's also other characters from other Bethesda games that show up, voice actors who started reprise roles, some of that fun stuff. But yeah, I would love to have been able to change that. I guess I won't be able to. But I do have to make the decision of what am I going to do. What am I going to do? Am I going to go back to my previous save? Am I going to continue to reboot everything in New Game Plus? And when you reboot, you can kind of like, again, minor spoiler here, but you can kind of like tell the people that you meet what happened and that you have rebooted things, and that sort of maybe like skips through some of the story a little bit and changes things a little bit, but not much.
I think I know what you'll do.
What do you think I'm going to do?
Play Cyberpunk 2077.
Well, I'm going to go through Phantom Liberty, but even while I'm playing Phantom Liberty, and especially when I was just doing the 2.0 update, I kept thinking about Skyrim. I kept thinking, well, maybe I should just get back in there and build a couple outposts. Or I'm gonna have to go get a new ship
I love that siren call.
So that's good. That makes me think
you said Skyrim, but you meant Starfield.
Starfield.
Sure.
Yeah, Starfield. It makes me think that my prediction that Starfield is going to have the most longevity over the course of the next couple years out of any of the games that are going to beat it out for Game of the Year this year. I believe Starfield is going to have the most longevity. And is in 2 years from now, nobody's going to be talking about Baldur's Gate 3. Baldur's Gate 3 is an amazing game, and that's going to win Game of the Year. But in 2 years from now, people are still going to be talking about and still playing Starfield. Nobody's going to be talking about.
I would buy that. From the way I hear people talking about it, is it just becomes a part of your gaming life.
One of the things you brought up, which was interesting, you turned me on to earlier today, was NPR. NPR had a 22-minute, what are they, pop culture happy hour? Is what one of their shows is called, where they got a science expert, a game expert, and like a newscaster. Who is Glenn Weldon? But he sounded like one of the, like a main NPR newscaster who played 72 hours.
Yeah.
But to hear them talk about Starfield, and to have Starfield from a pop culture perspective have like made it out enough into the mainstream that NPR is doing a segment on it. That alone is interesting. Right. And then to hear NPR talk about it in an NPR way, I thought was fascinating. So go look that up.
It's definitely like a different world.
Yeah.
Yeah. And they had all played it. One guy had played it 72 hours.
Yeah. So Forrester said Starfield is like my new MMO. I wish it was multiplayer. If it was multiplayer, this would be the world that I would live in. That's for me, it's a very significant downside.
Maybe that'll happen.
That it's not an MMO.
I mean, it happened to Skyrim.
I don't know. It sounds like Bethesda's got their brain on future projects.
Oh, yeah.
Which is great, because then it's more fun Bethesda games. But
right. But I mean, if
They did do Fallout 76.
I mean
but
RFG, RPGs are their strong point, so maybe they
yes,
stick with that.
and they didn't have that great an experience doing Fallout 76, so
Yeah.
maybe we won't get a multiplayer. All right, we go long on these new shows, don't we, Sema?
Mm-hmm. Unlike the old show.
Well, we've hit some new records over and over
Don't-
in the past couple weeks.
I don't want to know.
Let's finish it up by just touching on, as we like to do, Star Wars, The Old Republic, which is our main MMO, which we have a lot of fun in.
Mm-hmm.
PvP is wrapping up this week, the PvP season. Have you finished all the ranks that you meant to on PvP?
Yes, I
Sema?
did exactly the number of ranks I meant to on the
Exactly.
PvP.
No more, no less. Exactly what she means.
I am
to.
a PvP success story right there.
I also got all the ranks that I meant to, which was 17 out of 25, which was exactly what I wanted to do.
And that is an accomplishment.
That got me the complete set, and then starting at 18 to 25 is sort of like an upgraded, cosmetically upgraded version of that set. It's got some glowy parts on it, which is actually
cool.
very, very cool. But I only wanted to put in the work to get to 17. Worked out really well for me. And then Galactic Season is continuing, and we're having a lot of fun with that as well, aren't we? I think we're going to do some stuff tonight, right after the podcast, or pretty soon after the podcast. Got to do a little bit of a break. But yeah, we're going to do a few of the group objectives. That's the fun thing that happens in Star Wars: The Old Republic with the season that they've worked out is each week you get those extra group objectives. Have you been keeping up doing 7 objectives a week and getting on the rep going?
I have
Cool.
been. I don't know if I'm going to make it this week though. But that's okay because I've been.
So have you looked ahead at the objectives for this week and you think it's?
I have not.
Oh, right. You got a busy week.
Yeah.
Which is why we're doing that podcast on Tuesday.
Right. So I might not, especially if there's a bunch that require group play, which I probably won't be around for Ops or for MFN, which are my 2 big sources of group play in Star Wars: The Old Republic.
Yes. Well, there are always some solo ones, so maybe you can pop those in during coffee and contemplation time in the morning.
But I'm not worried. I still can get 200, whatever. Yeah.
Right.
I'll still be able to meet my long-term goals.
Yeah. Finishing the season, finishing sort of like the battle pass version of the season, that's no problem. Everybody if you just kind of play the game regularly, you kind of will finish that. There's a harder thing was an extra achievement where you really only get like an extra armor set, a couple extra cosmetics and a title. That takes a bunch more diligence. You need to do 100 objectives throughout the season, not just enough objectives to get you to level 100, which is far fewer. It's like 60. So you do need to do, 30%, 50% more to get all of that done, 50% more diligence. But you'll still be able to do that, no problem. Yeah, so we're going to keep up with that. We'll keep everybody up to date. I wonder when they're going to start the next PvP season. So we'll want to look at that. And then the final thing, I did want to show off this. Ashley, who is the creative director for Star Wars: The Old Republic, went to a special event, and she is a creator in her own right personally, and took patterns from another creator that designs Star Wars specific clothing. And
she designs all kinds of costume clothing.
Okay. There's a Star Wars, an elegant Star Wars formal wear, and Ashley took those patterns and sewed it, created it, built it, and then wore it to this event. This almost like a what would you just? It's almost like a live role play multi-day or 2-day escape room kind of Star Wars.
Yeah, I mean,
event.
I don't know what the activities are like, but it's a simulated Star Cruiser, and you go there and you get like a stateroom, and
which sounds super
Warsy.
cool. And she wore her elegant Star Future Galaxy Far Far Away clothing that she made, and it looks amazing.
I like her. I like her pendant too.
Yep, that's a SWTOR pendant. So yeah, really, really, really cool. Yeah, it's big. It's a big. Where'd you get that big of a pendant?
I know.
It frames it really well. It's almost like a clasp on the cape that she made there. So great job, Ashley. We want to see everything that you create because she is a maker of all kinds.
Yes, she is.
So well done. All right. In chat room, as Forster says, the next PvP season should be starting about 4 weeks after the current one ends. So a few weeks, hopefully, we'll hear about the new season and see what they're going to bring us. They always bring us new presents in terms of the armor sets and the rewards that they're going to have. So looking forward to that. Super long. That's it for today, though. So this was fun. We have fun with this new format of the show, don't we?
We do.
Having fun. You know, other shows that are this long often have breaks. So we could build a break into our recording session.
I don't need a break. Do you need a break?
No, we're powered on through. Plus, I got to go grab food before our mandatory fun night, which is starting up, and my daughter's waiting upstairs. We're gonna go hit a drive-thru, I think, real quick. So that's it for today. All the feed and subscribe links are on NewOverlords.com, and our video, as always, is on YouTube/NewOverlords. Any place that you can subscribe, if you could do that for us, that would be excellent. Please come chat with us in our Discord at NewOverlords.com/Discord, and also follow on Twitter, Mastodon, Blue Sky, Threads, with either Max the Gray or New Overlords. Look those up there. I'm in all of those places too. We'll keep you up to date when the show's going live and when the show is hitting the feeds. And with that, we will talk to you soon.
Later, everyone. Take care of yourselves.